Do you wake up every day fired up to make a difference? Are you committed to taking your nonprofit to the next level and beyond? I have news for you. Success isn't about hard work or passion. It's about having a smart, scalable strategy in place. Hi, I'm Tom Kelly, your nonprofit catalyst. You may know me as the CEO of Charity Auction Today and Donor Books, or the author of The $1 Million Nonprofit. What I help nonprofits achieve that give them a significant edge and a clear path to substantial growth is the ability to strategically fundraise and effectively engage their community. And that's what I'm going to share with you right here on the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. In each episode, I'm going to take you behind the scenes to reveal the strategies, techniques, and tactics of successful nonprofits so that you can put these into practice immediately to grow your organization. No matter if we are talking about common pitfalls nonprofits make and how to avoid them, exploring how to accelerate your next fundraising campaign, looking at how to attract ideal donors, or everything in between, this conversation is designed to drive your nonprofit forward. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. What do you do after you're awarded a grant? A lot of people think, hey, I just got awarded $50,000. Thanks for the money, and I can just take it and spend it on my organization.
You can easily set up an award notification system that's a template in a Word document that lets your team know, hey, everyone, we've received this grant award. And you can summarize the grant information there that helps the whole team get on the same page. Everybody's in the loop. The other part is compliance. So when a grant is awarded, whether it's from an individual donor or from the government or a private foundation, there's a responsibility attached to that. And often people think about that related to compliance. So you'll be asked to sign a contract that then really says that you will be responsible for implementing the grant like you said you would and spending that money in the way you outlined in the budget you submitted.
Today's episode is brought to you by Charity Auctions Today, the ultimate platform for hosting successful charity auctions online or in person. With their easy-to-use software, you can raise more money, reach more donors, and make a bigger impact. Whether you're running a silent auction, a live event, or a virtual fundraiser, Charity Auctions Today has everything you need to maximize your results without all the hassle. Join over 250,000 organizations that have raised millions with their powerful auction tools. Ready to level up your fundraising? Visit charityauctionstoday.com right now to get started for free. Welcome back to the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. Today, we're diving deep into the world of grant management and how to prepare your organization to maximize those opportunities. Successfully navigating grant management can be the key to unlocking transformational growth for your nonprofit, especially if you're aiming to hit that $1 million mark. Joining me today is Paige Heinerman, a powerhouse in nonprofit development with 16 years of experience in capacity building and technical assistance. From raising over $17 million in funding to designing multi-million-dollar grant-making portfolios, Paige has helped countless organizations grow and thrive. She's also led the restructuring of major initiatives in the nonprofit sector. Paige, welcome to the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. So today we're talking about grant writing and grant management. So before we dive into grant management, what are some successful tips on how to actually secure and get awarded grants that most people don't know about?
Yeah, there are so many things out there. There's a lot of information out there and a lot of different things that folks can do. Thinking about capacity, people working with a limited team, perhaps, or limited time, thinking about those activities that will give you the biggest return on your investment of your time. Building the relationship, I would say, is one of the biggest tips I can give folks. A cold application, unless it's to typically like a federal state request for proposals, is not going to get awarded, or it will be harder. So building the relationship is a big piece. And that can easily be done by sending a quick email, introducing yourself, letting the funder know who you are, that you're interested in building a relationship. People respect that and can appreciate that. When the funding is transactional, it can only go but so deep for a program officer to connect with. So you want to make it more of a connection than just a transaction of funds.
Now,
that's one big key.
When it comes to searching out organizations that give out grants, most people think of like a government agency or the state that are giving out grants to nonprofits. Are there other organizations that they should be thinking about other than maybe government agencies that offer grants for nonprofits?
Absolutely. Most corporations, like a Walmart or a CVS, they will have a foundation arm or a corporate social responsibility arm to that corporation that will grant dollars out. So there's that. There's also private foundation. You can do a Google search to find private foundations that are in your area, funding in your geographic location, or you can even do a Google search and ask it for foundations that fund maybe within your specific service area, like the programs that you offer. If you support housing, you could do a search in that, for example, and find foundations. And then there's family foundations also, which is a little bit different than a big foundation. But yeah, so there's some great ways. Another area is also individual donors. I feel like that's a group that's left out.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, when you think about grants, you don't think about maybe finding an individual donor to potentially petition for a grant for an initiative that you guys might be running.
Yeah, or they want to give themselves. And if you have a campaign for individual donors, so maybe it's not a grant, but it's a way to raise funds through collective action of a group of other people. So that's always a great way. There's Giving Tuesday that's coming up in November, and those are individual donor campaigns that organizations put out asking for people like you and I to give money.
Now, I can talk and we can talk about how to write grants and get grants awarded, but that's a whole nother episode that we're going to have to film. This one, I really want to focus your expertise on what do you do after you're awarded a grant? So, a lot of people think, hey, I just got awarded $50,000. Thanks for the money. And I can just take it and spend it on my organization. But that's not necessarily the case, is it?
It's not that easy. So where to start with that? There are a lot of different systems that I recommend people setting up that you can do that are one, easy to do, and two, free. So you can easily set up an award notification system that's a template in a Word document that lets your team know, hey, everyone, we've received this grant award. And you can summarize the grant information there that helps the whole team get on the same page. Everybody's in the loop. Communication's a big piece. We're talking about grants management, making sure that everybody who touches that grant or those dollars really understands what it's about so that they can maintain compliance. That's the other part, is compliance. So when a grant is awarded, whether it's from an individual donor or from the government or a private foundation, there's a responsibility attached to that. And often people think about that related to compliance. So you'll be asked to sign a contract that then really says that you will be responsible for implementing the grant like you said you would and spending that money in the way you outlined in the budget you submitted.
Yeah. And what happens if you don't, if you're not following the compliance and you're out of compliance with your grant? What are some of the possible, repercussions that can happen?
That's a really good question. You're less likely to be refunded by that funder. You're also less likely to be funded by other funders because it's a small community and they do talk. And outside of the relationship that they have with you, they have relationships with each other. And they do share information. And so others will know that maybe you didn't respect that compliance. The other part too is that if you find yourself out of compliance or leaning in that direction, that's why that relationship piece is really important. Trusting that you can reach out to your program officer or your point of contact on the funder side and say, hey, I'm noticing this challenge that we're having, and being communicative and transparent about that, so that they can help you.
And really the tip there is just over communicate, even if you're falling behind, because you kind of want to get ahead of it with the communication so that your funder doesn't, you don't want your funder to find out the information first. It'd probably be better if you were the one to be upfront and be like, hey, we're struggling in this area. We might need a little bit of time or help, and just be upfront with it.
Yeah. A good opportunity when you're checking in with your funder, oftentimes they have, a regular check-in with their grantees, or Another check-in point that's a bit more passive is your reporting. You often have to report back to your funder either every 6 months or annually in some phase. And they will often ask, is there some way we can help? Or is there technical assistance that would be helpful? That's your opportunity to voice that and say, you don't have to say like, we are struggling. I know that can be really hard to say, but you can say we're experiencing some challenges in X, Y, and Z area, and we would really appreciate your support and guidance. I think oftentimes grantees view it as a deficiency, but it's a relationship that goes both ways. And so as much as you are benefiting from them granting you dollars, they're also benefiting from all of the data that you are sharing with them, all of the program experimenting essentially that you're doing and research that you're doing on their behalf in real time and reporting back to them. So it is a two-way street, and they want to be helpful. They want you to maintain compliance and they want to be supportive.
What do you do once a grant is awarded? What are probably some of the first 3 to 5 steps that they should take to kind of get the management in place so that they are compliant and they're not, nothing's falling underneath the table where they're going to get, bitten in the backside down the road?
Yeah, great question. I talked a little bit about this a few minutes ago, but, the first thing, I guess I'll go in kind of a chronological order. The first thing folks should do is really have a kickoff meeting. I always encourage, even if it's, it's the same type of program or it's the same type of grant as this other grant, that's, it will have its own responsibility. And so I always have a kickoff meeting with everybody who might touch that grant, from your fiscal team to your direct program staff, your development team, perhaps. And that's where you can present that award. I call it an award memo, because it's really a brief document that summarizes the grant, how much you got awarded, what the grant cycle is, who those points of contact are internally, externally, maybe what your reporting cycles look like. Outside of that kickoff meeting, disseminating the award memo, the next thing I would do is issue a reporting calendar and an implementation calendar. So the reporting calendar would really designate, this is when our reports to the funder are due. And you would work backwards on whatever timeline worked for you and your team on really the drafting phases of those reports. Especially if you're reporting out to a state or federal funder, they have a lot of requirements. They want to know a lot of stuff, and they want a lot of data, and they want a lot of anecdotal information or qualitative information. And that can take some time to gather. So you don't want to end up in the last 2 weeks, rushing around. So it's always good practice, right when you're awarded, get that on the calendar and build it out for draft process for your reporting. The other thing is the implementation meetings, which really are periodic check-ins on how your grant is performing. It's your grant, whoever is managing the grant from the administrative side, like if you have a grant settlement person, that's great. Sometimes it's the CEO or sometimes it's the program manager, and that's okay too. But you have that person, you have someone from your fiscal department or whoever is managing finances, and whoever really touches it frequently, so that they can really, and there are easy templates you can build in a Word document, again, in a table format, perhaps, putting your grant deliverables on one side and kind of your status outcomes on the other side. This also helps mitigate those compliance issues, because you can see right away, like, we're having some challenges with recruitment. This could be an issue down the line when we talk about X number of people that we're expected to graduate from our program. So we want to be aware of that now. But if you're not having those regular check-ins and documenting the outcome of those check-ins, then there's really no way for you to know that. People sometimes see these processes as almost impossible or unnecessary to implement. But when you don't, it makes it really hard to ever break out of getting grants that are more than $2,500 or $5,000. You have to have these things and processes in place, and it's really easy. But those would be like the very first things that you can do within the first week of being awarded a grant.
What is your suggestion for bringing on a grant admin? Is it a certain level of grant? Is it a certain level of the organization? Like, when would be a good time to maybe take the grant administration away from the CEO once they get to a certain level? Is there a certain threshold that we should be looking at, or what do you suggest there?
My first response is as soon as possible, because it's not the CEO's responsibility, but it's hard. I mean, reality, we all know how that goes. Like one-man operation, you're doing it all. That's good to find, that's when it's good to have like a working board versus an advisory board. And you can onboard folks in a volunteer capacity and utilize their skills. So perhaps there's someone, you can put calls out for people, folks with skills to join your board in that capacity. So there's that. But I would say as soon as you're able to financially sustain it, so the position. So if you're able to write a grant and write that position into it and hire, my first piece of advice is don't wait until all that's done to write the job description. Figure that out first. So as soon as you get awarded, you can get that out and start moving with getting the person found and hired. But as soon as you can financially sustain it. But if you can write them into a grant and get that person hired, and you just, you have to put systems and best practices in place. You can't just hire the person. Having some of the things we just talked about are really critical in, ever being awarded again or being awarded more dollars and being able to sustain that position and others.
Is the grant admin and a grant writer the same position, or is that two different positions in an organization?
It really depends on a few things. First I'll say those are different skills. So don't expect to hire one thinking that they can do the other job, because that is not true. You may find someone that has both of those skills, which would be fantastic.
Send them your way if that's the case.
I know, right? Yeah, I have lots of people that could use them. Yes. So the grant writer is going to do all the upfront development work and write the proposal to get your grant. And then the grant admin is going to manage it once it's awarded. I've done both of those roles within an organization. I think the part is one, recognizing that skill-wise they are different roles and don't expect, someone to have both, but also the volume of work. So if you're a $4 million organization, you need to have both of those roles. You need to have two people, because that's a lot of volume of reporting and management for just one person. And producing new, thoughtful, strategic proposals.
I've never heard of adding the grant admin into the grant. Is that something that a lot of organizations that you work with do, or is it something that you kind of suggest and it's kind of something that a lot of people don't think about?
Well, the organizations I work with, all of the positions are grant funded. So they're writing them all into all roles. And a good funder does know and understand that it takes a certain role, it takes a team to properly manage the dollars and the activities, and on an administrative side and on an implementation side. So yeah, it's common. I think it's just really hard for folks to kind of get over that initial hump of writing themselves into, I often hear, executive directors are, a one-man show, not paying themselves. And you have to take that, you have to take those leaps. But having systems in place, having data in place, these things are really, really critical.
Now, you consult with a lot of nonprofits on this topic. What are some of the common mistakes that you see them making that you're kind of bringing the solutions to the table?
One, operating for a really long time, not having these things in place, honestly. And I know I've said that a lot in this conversation, but it's true. Also thinking that they have to spend a lot of money on big systems, which just is not true and can often be more cumbersome for the staff, time consuming because you have to learn a new software. When I work with folks who don't have anything in place, I always start with Excel and Word, things that are accessible and easy to use. So yeah, just getting out of your head about thinking you have to spend a lot of money to make these things happen and then not doing it. Also, I'll say similar to the fund development piece, the relationship with your point of contact, wherever you're receiving the money from, can really help on the grants management side. And then data. Don't think you'll get away with not collecting data. You'll be out of compliance for one. And two, you've just wasted all this time and money, opportunity to make your case and more easily get more funds. and prove to people that what you do works. Yeah, the data piece is really important when it comes to grants management.
And when you're working with the smaller nonprofits, do you help with that? Maybe it's only a founder, right, that's doing all the admin on their own. Do you coach them on, hey, here's how we should do it. Here's all the tools to manage it. And here's the best practices to make sure that you're compliant, you're following all the rules. And is that part of the main service that you provide?
Yeah, that's a big service that I do provide. People often seek me out to write proposals for them because I want to do right by the organization and have them do right by their own organization. We often find that people don't have the systems in place that even if they were awarded the grant to be able to actually manage it. So then it ends up more of a conversation about, okay, what do we need to get you prepared to be able to even apply and be competitive in this landscape where you're at? And so there's a lot of preparatory work that often takes place that I help clients with, setting up systems, writing job descriptions, figuring out what staffing structure makes most sense for them on a grants management or fund development side related to how they're structured organizationally. And board involvement is really important when it comes to the fund development component and therefore the grants management piece as well.
Well, it sounds like it's a great stepping stone where you're not big enough yet to be able to have the funds to hire a grant admin. So it is something that can be done by the founder or one other person with a little bit of guidance and the right tools. They can do it on their own. And then as they go and apply for more and more grants and the money starts flowing in, they can start adding in a lot of the, grant admin salaries into these grants as their company grows. And it's basically just stepping stones, right? I would start with, talking to somebody like you to come in, give the guidance to say, hey, let's get your first grant. Here's the steps. Get them doing it themselves. And then when they go to get their next grant and the third grant and the fourth grant, then they can start and they'll already have the experience of managing it on their own, which will help them to either train or bring on somebody that has the right experience that can do it for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So how can organizations leverage previous grant successes to secure future funding? So like you've totally knocked a grant out of the park. How do they double that down into the next grant?
One, storytelling is huge. So you just want to always capture that. I'll go back to the point I said about data. If you've been keeping your data and managing your grant implementation along the way, then when you do that final report out to your funder, should definitely, one, you'll be reporting out all those successes. They're going to be thinking about that for their next cycle of funding that's about to come up or will come up. That's also where the relationship comes into play, right? So maybe you're uploading that final report to a portal where it's not an email where you can have a personal touch, but nobody's stopping you from sending an email after you upload that report and saying it would be great to connect so we can talk about the next cycle of funding. It gives them the opportunity to say, we're actually not having any more cycles of funding, or great. That sounds fantastic. And you can say, we just uploaded our report. We had so many successes. I'd love to talk about that. So the relationship piece is really big. And the reporting also is a really good opportunity. And you can always reach out to them and share, what's gone right. But yeah, I would say the reporting piece and the relationship piece are the two big opportunities there to reapply. Just always being in community and fellowship really with your funders.
Yeah. After talking with thousands of nonprofits, the one common thing that they all have in common is storytelling and over communicating to the donors, all the successes, the failures, the good, the bad, the ugly. And don't be afraid to over communicate because they're giving you money. They want to know what that money was used for. How did it help? What was the impact? Because that's where they feel the love, especially individual donors, where, if they give you $100, they want to know, who did it help? What did it do? Did I just give to an organization and it just went off into oblivion? Or did it actually help feed somebody or clothe somebody or put them through a training program? And, those are some of the great things of why people keep coming back to specific organizations, because It's the ones that over communicate and have a great story to tell. And I think the more you can be individualized to the donor or the grantor, the better. And I think that'll just kind of your odds of getting another grant or another donation from those people are just going to go up.
Yeah, absolutely. The communication and the specific communication, right? If you're able to say on your website, like instead of just having a donate button, or you have a donate button that takes you to a sub page where folks are able to see, like, if I give $1,500, it's going to buy someone a month of like bus passes and a work uniform and, these things, then people can more easily connect with where their dollars are going. And on the funder side of like bigger donors, they're reporting to someone. They have a responsibility to a boss as well, who is asking them, okay, you advocated for these dollars for this organization. What did they do? So as much as they may love you and as much as you may have that relationship, again, going back to that data piece, if you're not, or the compliance piece, like they do have a responsibility to their boss, like they're employed somewhere.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a great point, because I never even thought of that until you just said that. Like I wouldn't think that they do have to report up the chain. Mm-hmm. It's not the person usually at some of these bigger corporations or the governments. They're just the one doing the administrative work, giving it out. They're not, they have to report up to somebody to see, did they do a good job? Did their grant get used? So I would always keep that in mind as you're getting these grants too, to make it easier for you to over communicate the successes of your work.
Absolutely. I sat inside a foundation as a senior program officer for 6 months, and it was a very rewarding experience, and it gave me a lot of insight to really, some of those processes that are just, we don't think about when we're not in that position. But yeah, they have to make the case, they have to advocate, and they have KPIs they have to report out on too, like the rest of us.
Yeah, I love it. So let's just say you have multiple grants and overlapping deadlines. How do you prioritize the grants when you have multiple ones that you're responsible for reporting back to, when there's deadlines that are coming and going and one might be before the other? How do you manage that?
Yeah, that's why the reporting calendar is essential. Again, as soon as you're awarded, do that award memo, create your implementation table so you can have those check-in meetings, and get that reporting calendar done. Getting that done is going to because you'll get the reminders that'll pop up. Oh, that's right. I have that report to XYZ Foundation due in 2 months. I need to start working on that. You can have little reminders. I mean, technology is incredible now. You have little reminders just pop up on your calendar every week. You could have it once a week for, even if it's just reminding you. The other thing too is using your calendar as a time management tool, right? You can block time on your calendar outside of utilizing it for reporting reminders to write those reports. Put a 2-hour chunk on your calendar every week just to focus on reporting. Focus on one funder each week. You get a lot done in that, and create templates. So every funder is different. They all have their own questions they want to ask. You might be fortunate enough to be operating somewhere where your local funders have collaborated and now have a standard reporting, a template that they're using across all grantees, but that's not very common. But you can still create a template where whether they ask a question about, tell us your challenges and lessons learned, or they ask that question in a different way, it's still the same information you're going to give them. So you can copy and paste it. You don't have to recreate it. Now, grant cycles vary from grant to grant, obviously. So you want to make sure your data is accurate for that specific cycle and not a different cycle. But templates are really helpful to helping you just get things done faster and just be more streamlined. Also, file management. Build your file out. We all have digital files now. Google Drive is a great free option. You don't have to invest in Dropbox. We're not dealing with, highly sensitive information like on a grants admin side related to social security numbers or health or things like that. These are administrative documents. So build your file out. I usually do it by year. and then funder, and then by program. Because sometimes you have a funder who might do multiple programs, or maybe you get general operating dollars and they fund a program. And then you want to build all those out and populate them with all of your administrative documents just right away. Because when you need them, then you know where they are.
Well, this has been a great conversation into the world of grant management. So much more information I'm sure that we can talk about. But where can people find out more information about you and what you do to kind of help organizations with their grant management?
Yeah, and we could go on for so long. I have a website. It's pagecapacitybuilders.com, PAGE capacitybuilders.com. And I am on LinkedIn, so people can find me in either of those places. Awesome.
Well, we'll make sure that all of your links to your websites and social media are in the bio. If people want more information, Paige is your go-to for anything grant management. So make sure that you check her out. A lot of great information today, Paige. I appreciate your time. And thanks so much for being on the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Before we wrap up, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Charity Auctions Today. If you're looking to boost your fundraising with an easy-to-use auction tool, they've got you covered. From silent auctions to live events, they help you reach more donors and raise more money for your cause. Ready to take your nonprofit to the next level? Head over to charityauctionstoday.com to learn more and get started for free. Thanks again to Charity Auctions Today for sponsoring the show, and thank you again for listening to the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode of the $1 Million Nonprofit Podcast. You're here. That means you're ready to take your nonprofit to the next level and make a greater impact. Come visit realtomkelly.com/playbooks to download free playbooks that your nonprofit can use today to start scaling to $1 million in donations. Plus, so much more. Catch the new behind-the-scenes insights on the next episode, and until then, here's to the impact you will make. I'm Tom Kelly. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and encourage others to listen.